While Phastos may not be necessarily fast, he is quickly confusing the Marvel Snap community, because what do you do with him? Is he a good cards card? Is he a surfer card? Is he a card you need to have in your collection? Honestly, this is one of the hardest cards this month to figure out, and I'll gladly explain why, okay? So, Phastos is a 3/3 that has the on-reveal ability of give each card in your deck -1 cost and +2 power, not and, or. So it's only getting one or the other. Now remember, if this on-reveal procs, say you put it on, Kamar Taj, every card is going to get either -2 cost, -1 cost, and +2 power, or +4 power. So that's how it's going to stack on up, because every card in the deck will be addressed that way. The thing is with Phastos that I think is the most annoying is that it's a turn 3 card. There's no way to expedite it out, unless if the locations like Tinker's Workshop, for example, drop on down. So if you're using this card, its value goes tremendously down over time. This is not a card that you can put down on turn 5 and thoroughly enjoy the maximum of what you're going to get out of it. On turn 5, it's a worse version of Psylocke and a more expensive version of America Chavez. So you need to play this card early. And that's where I'm currently struggling with the card, because it has to, if you draw it, which you have a 50% chance on any given game to draw Phastos into your hand. If you draw it, you have to play it on turn 3. And there are very select decks that want that are asking for Phastos to drop in at a 3/3, which is okay stats. I would personally have liked to see Phastos a little higher, but if you did not know, I'm recording this because I'm currently, at the time that you're watching this video, traveling. I'm on vacation, so it would be greatly appreciated if you liked and subscribed down below, as we have more videos coming out during my hiatus before I return in the middle of July. So I really would appreciate the support, y'all. And I'm recording this as a 3/3, and I really hope that this goes up as either 3/4, 3/5 even. I could see that, but more importantly, I think the deck begs. This is a card that reminds me a lot of Luke Cage and Shadow King and Mobius and Zabu, where there's this constant conversation of, should it be a 3-cost card or should it be a 2-cost card? And I wish that this card came on out as like a 2/2. I think this would be absolutely fantastic at 2/2 to give it that one extra turn of one of the random buffs, because you don't know which one you're getting on any given card. The other thing we don't know quite yet in the pre-testing is, when you do this to Phastos, does it also shuffle the deck? That's another thing we have to look at too, because then it's going to change up other deck potentials, for example, of cards that add in. When you think of Thor, it shuffles in Mjolnir because it's adding a card in there. When you look at Mr. Negative, does it necessarily always shuffle? Not. It doesn't give you the cards that you want. I think that Phastos at 3/3 is a very awkward play, and it made deck building for it a little difficult. I'll show you what I worked with already, and you let me know at the end of the video if this feels like a card that you absolutely need to have, because I'm not sure yet. But by the end of the decks, maybe we'll have a better idea. This one I featured on the last video, but now it's time for Phastos to shine, where you don't need to have the Makari play. Now we can put Phastos into this deck, because Phastos is going to help benefit what Gilgamesh wants, which is all of the cards to have some kind of plus power. The downside to Gilgamesh in this overall is it's been very pigeonholed to Zoo being successful, at least at the time of the recording of this video. So now we look at Athena, Angela, Kitty Pryde, cards that ramp up all by themselves, Okoye and Nakia, which can ramp every card at some given point, Elsa Bloodstone, which can give power at any given point, and I mean, now Phastos into the mix. I very rarely see that Gilgamesh being under 512, if not 513, 514, as just a big, beefy power play to drop down. In conjunction with the idea that you can then also Absorbing Man on turn 6. I think that that's a very underrated play. And especially going, if you get a late draw of Thena, Absorbing Man Thena is really powerful. So there's a lot of ways that I think Gilgasurf will benefit from Phastos in some capacity. What that capacity exactly looks like, well, that will be up to you, the community, to decide if this build or this variation of a build actually works. But I do think that Gilgamesh and Phastos have a nice synergy together, and I think that Phastos going down on turn 3 does lean into the benefit of what this style of deck wants. Dropping Phastos on 3 and then go back to your Kitty Pryde +3 cost style builds, big thing on Gilgamesh on turn 5, and then drop the final Surfer power on turn 6. But if you don't draw Surfer, you still have the Thena, Angela, Kitty Pryde package, you still have a Lane Clog package, you still have ramping that can happen with the power, and now via the cost from Phastos, there's a couple of different mechanics that we can take advantage of here. So Gilgasurf is where I'm first starting off in this deck. The other Surfer variation that I will throw to Phastos is Surfer Tech, where you're really just playing a defensive game while playing Silver Surfer. So I won't go too heavy into this, but it does run Negasonic Teenage Warhead. The Mobius and Mobius is to counter other Phastoses? I don't know. Let me know in the comments which one you would say, but I'm going to go with Phastoses. And then Red Guardian to also help combat everything. Killmonger is going to be a huge card for a little while. This is a way to play it out there in a deck that wants to play defense with a late offensive game. I like that. So Surfer Tech, there you go. What else can we use it in that is not Silver Surfer? Yeah, I know. I'm not happy about it, but it's Thanos. Thanos very much so loves this. Big, beefy Thanos really loves this. Getting +2 power on Mockingbird or Vision to drop down the Scar feels great. Any of these cards getting reduced, just like the old Time Stone used to do, that feels great. Drop extra cards on top of Hope Summers and then still play defense with Shang-Chi simultaneously because all of the Gilgameshes in the world are out there. That feels great. Phastos on turn 3 in a Thanos deck makes a lot of sense because you can sacrifice turn 3. Absolutely. And I think that this gives just enough power that if you can't get the Hope on 3, you put the Phastos down on 3. And that's a great secondary play line. And the entire deck benefits from it. The stones become free if they get reduced because there is no minimum 1 associated with Phastos' ability. So because of that, you can capitalize on that. You may end up with a free stone or a Psylocke for 1 or a Magneto for 5. There's some cool things that you can do with that little bit of extra reduction. And the Blob loves that because it could require less cards to eat if you play your Blob, let's say, out and get a on turn 5 even because you got it reduced down. There's a couple of things that are really cool about Phastos in a Thanos deck, so I'm saying Phanos actually does make a lot of sense. As for Phastmesh, very similarly to what we talked about last week with Gilgamesh being an incredibly strong deck, at least at the time of recording this video. Again, this is the future that I'm projecting right now. This is still going to be a really good deck. Phastos loves it. All the cards, there's no 6-cost cards. I'm not worried about it. Just drop it down on turn 3 if you don't get your Kyera down. That feels good every single time because everything you draw afterwards, you'll be able to play at some point, whether it's extra power because Gilgamesh loves it and you didn't get the blue Marvel draw, you got an extra piece of reinforcement there to help give the benefit that you're looking for. Nebula scales all by herself. Dazzler's going to be able to scale with Ant-Man. And then Jeff is just your flexible piece. Jeff is probably the most flexible piece in this entire deck. If you want to put in a different piece of tech into there, you can. But I took out Squirrel Girl because Shauna typically does the job of what you're looking for. And you've already got Mockingbird to drop down late also too. So I haven't really felt the need to play both Shauna and Squirrel Girl in every version of a Gilgamesh deck. I feel that goes a little too weak. I like doing one or the other rather than having to play both. Jeff, you can flex. Kyera, you can flex. Shauna, if you're gonna flex, only switch really to Squirrel Girl, but then go a little heavier in another piece of tech. Phastos fits organically into Zoo as a you want to drop this on turn 3 style card. This one comes inspired from Super Tech God, where Super Tech God mentioned that one of the things that he wanted to run with Phastos was Living Tribunal, because it's just more power on the board and cheaper cards down onto the board as well. And the reason I really liked it was specifically Blink. Being able to play Phastos on 4 now actually has a load of benefit, because you're all, as I said, you want to play this one down on Phastos down on turn 3. But if you get that magic down on turn 3, you're gonna then need to look at what's your turn 4 look like. Jubilee is the card you're working on, or Electro is the card you're working on. Electro is the card I ended up opting to go ahead and take out, because I think that between Magic and Wave, there's enough here to work with that I don't need to have that extra piece of energy via Electro, because that one can be hit or miss, and you hate redrawing it. Phastos feels a little better to redraw, and I still have 2 tossing mechanics that I can work with for that Blink rotation out to get these cards out there, because Living Tribunal lost one of its homes. It lost the Hela Modoc home, so now we need to really hone in what Living Tribunal can do. And I think Phastos does lean into that because it has some of those heavier cards. And with the Super Skrull and the Iron Man, remember, Super Skrull is probably taking a Blue Marvel in a good percentage of your matchups. So it's like playing a 4/2 Blue Marvel, which every single card can benefit from. I like that a lot. I really do like that a lot. I think that this is a fun variation on the Living Tribunal that just gives us another way to look at it, because Phastos is a very difficult card to work with conceptually. So in the beginning, I do think we have to just plop it into a couple of very specific types of builds and customize it as needed. Magic in this deck works very well with Phastos because you get that extra turn. So I liked the idea of the Living Tribunal deck. Kudos to Super Tech God for the idea. Sat down, and this is what I came up with. Next up, Phixie Wings, which I love that name. I love that name, Phixie Wings. I'm proud of that one, okay? It's a silly name, but it's fun. So it's taking the Darkhawk Annihilus package with Phixie and Phastos. So now you've got reduction happening in a variety of different ways into the deck. So it helps to actually mitigate some of the downside of, let's say, your Sentry took on the Cersei power. Okay. Then you Phastos. Well, now it's back to basically normal potentially. Or it just got a double reduction or a further reduction because it was reduced down to either Hood, Spider-Ham, Korg, or Nico's 1-cost card, but then it got a further reduction, minimum 0, right? Now it can become a 0-cost card. I really like that for Phastos in here. I was heavily debating about Mobius because Pixie Mobius is typically a snap condition in those decks, but it's a Darkhawk deck, so I'm leaning towards Black Widow. Black Widow and Rockslide, it is a very heavy Darkhawk package. However, you can substitute one of those out, in my opinion. One of those, not the Korg, not any of the ones. You need those for the Pixie. Either Rockslide or Black Widow for Mobius M. Mobius if you wish. Because I also put in Cersei. And Cersei, again, a very controversial card. Could be very good, could be very bad. Look, you're looking for that Phastos to have some value. So why not turn it into a 4-cost card? There are very few 4-cost cards that will have major downside in its conversion. That's why Cersei has 3 targets here in this deck. So you can flip the Void, just like you would want to do normally for the Sentry, go from 4 to 5. But Phastos going 3 to 4 is also relatively good. So I wanted to take that shell and make some Phixie Wings for the community. Look, I mean, when it comes down to it, Phastos is a very confusing card. It's a card with a lot of uncertainty because it reminds me a lot of Phixie. It's a card where we don't know if the RNG of is this going to work or not is strong enough to say, yeah, they're worth it. He's worth it. She's worth it. They're worth it, whatever it may be. I think Phastos is going to take probably more time than most cards this season to figure out. I don't expect a Phastos meta to appear in Phastos week of release. I do expect it in the future once we're able to really hone down and mitigate how to take advantage of that ability, because it's a weird ability. The RNG of the ability is really tough to work with. So I want to rock with it to try and find something that's really good. I threw out a couple of ideas. I think it's going to be a mandatory card in Surfer decks, just like how you start seeing Hope Summers now. I think Phastos becomes a very similar card where it's a turn 3 guaranteed card, drop it down. But I think this becomes Thanos' favorite card. I think this becomes Phixie's favorite card. There are some cool ways we can play with it. What are you going to start with? Because if I had to give you a recommendation on using your keys, this one might be, honestly, wait for it to come back in Spotlights a second time, because it might take that long for us to figure it out. I would not be surprised if by the following Monday, we still haven't figured out a really solid Phastos deck, but give it 2 to 3 weeks, just like what happened with Phixie. I would not be surprised if Phastos got figured out later on. Keep an eye on what Phastos does over the next couple weeks in the meta. I expect a very fun card. RNG is great to us sometimes, but it can also bite us in the butt. I'm giving this one as an overall rating a maybe. Wait till Monday, because it could break the meta. It could also not. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Hopefully this gives you some insight on how I'm feeling about Phastos. I'm excited to try the card out. I hope you are too. And let me know down below in the comments what you thought after this video. Is it worth it for you? Is the chance out there for you? And even later than that, if you're watching this after the release, how has it been working for you? Give me some deck lists. Let's showcase the community. Let's have some fun here. Thank you all so much for watching. For those who do not know, my name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming, and I look forward to seeing you here on the guest list.